would you be like, if I went somewhere that I wanted to go, would you be upset?
If you want to go somewhere that of course I would always want to go with you.
There it is.
But I feel like it is a fun journey. I mean, I gotta say, it's much easier when you are like in your early 20s and you're staying in hostels and you're like backpacking.
Hello and welcome to the Worldwide Honeymoon Travel Podcast, the podcast that talks about all things couples travel, including destinations, tips, advice, and more. I'm Chris.
I'm Kat.
And this is episode number 181.
Yes, and we're trying to bulk record some before we head to Africa next week, hopefully. Yeah. With all the craziness of travel that we explained, I think, what was it, 2 episodes ago? Yeah, we're also currently sipping a beer that, in theory, you'd think something coconutty flavored would be really, really good. In practice, it kind of just tastes like sunscreen. I
could not disagree with you more on that.
Okay.
I really respect your palate, but not today and not in this opinion. I think it tastes great. I love coconut though. You know that.
Yeah.
I think that coconut is safely probably a top 5 flavor. Yeah, I think that this is really good.
Okay.
You do not?
I think it tastes like sunscreen a little bit. Because when I first tried it, I was like, man, what is that weird flavor? And then you were like, it's coconut. And I was like, yeah, that's giving me some sunscreen vibes. But it doesn't taste like real coconut. It tastes like sunscreen coconut.
What on earth is sunscreen coconut?
Like the fake smell of coconut. I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
I think people are on the edge of their seats to figure this out.
Okay, kisses.
Okay, so you do not like what you're sipping on.
I mean, it's okay.
That's a disappointment.
I just wouldn't get it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
There we go.
Do you have any other updates?
No, that's it. Really.
That was it. Just your
my opinions on a coconut flavored beer.
You know what? You have had coconut beer in the past. You had one when we went to Southern Tier in Chautauqua.
Yeah, and that was pretty good.
It was good.
Yeah.
So you like coconut flavors?
Yeah, I do. I like coconut. I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. I don't know what to tell you here.
Yeah.
Other than this beer, do you have a highlight from this past week?
What have we been doing lately? Just working and things. Just finally prepping for the trip has kind of been our biggest thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
My highlight was my run that I took on Monday evening.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was very peaceful. Like there were a lot of birds. I saw a great blue heron, which was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I saw a lot of rabbits. And it was just like, it was a run where I could just go out and like maintain a nice pace. It was very effortless. It was really good for the mind, really good for the soul. I talked to my parents for a while I was running. It was just great, effortless exercise.
Nice. That's always a good time.
It is. And I have not had a lot of that lately, especially with running. It's been kind of a struggle for me as of late. But yeah, that was pretty solid. So
nice. I
had that as my highlight. Anything else you want to chat about, or do you want to get down to it?
Let's get down to it. Let's do it.
All right. So in today's episode, we are going to be talking about some of our favorite travel books, travel movies, and travel TV shows. Because sometimes it's really easy to fall into an inspirational rut.
Yes. And these aren't specific travel books, movies, or TV shows. They
Correct.
are books, movies, and TV shows that inspire you to travel either globally or a specific destination, etc.
That is right. These are not necessarily all like travel based, if that makes sense. But they can certainly relate to travel. Mm-hmm. Because yeah, like I said, it's sometimes easy to fall into an inspirational rut. It's easier to just do what you know, go where you're familiar with, and there are absolutely benefits to doing that, right? It's always fun to take a trip down memory lane or kind of tickle the nostalgia bone, as they say, but it's also really neat discovering a new spark or a new passion or a new place, and that could be as easy as turning on the TV or just reading a book. So in today's episode, we are going to talk all about some of our favorite books, movies, and shows that have personally inspired us to travel. And we think that they will do the same for you.
Yeah. And are yours in any particular order?
No, they are not.
Okay.
Are yours?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Why don't you start us off?
Okay. The first one that I'm going to start off with is both a book and a movie. And I will say that it really sparked my love of travel a little bit, or at least my wanderlust, when I was a teenager and read this book and saw this movie. And that is The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
I have never read the book.
Okay.
Never seen. Is it one book? Is it a series?
It's a series, but it was mostly the first book that inspired me.
Okay, I have never read the book, never seen the movie. What was it about the book that inspired you?
Okay, well, just a quick synopsis if you haven't heard of it. The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants is about these 4 girls, right? Yes, 4 girls, and they all find a pair of pants that fits each of them perfectly. Like, they're all different body types, all the stuff, it fits them all perfectly.
Is this one pair of pants?
Just one pair of pants. And so they send this pair of pants to each other throughout the summer when they're going to be separated. And the biggest thing that sparked my wanderlust was that Lena, one of the characters, was spending the summer in Santorini, Greece. And ever since reading about it in that book, as well as watching the movie, I knew that I had to go to Santorini, Greece, which I did eventually when I was backpacking abroad.
Did you enjoy your time in Santorini, Greece?
Yes, I did. It's not quite as not crowded and all this. I mean, it's definitely changed, and it certainly looks very different than it did in the movie. But it's still a very, very beautiful place. And I remember just thinking about that as a teenager, and it immediately made Greece top my bucket list. And yeah, definitely a big inspiration. And that was kind of my first big foray into travel, was reading that book and seeing that movie.
Why are these 4 people sharing a pair of pants?
So the whole premise is they're all 4 going to be kind of split up over the summer. Like they're either Lena's in Greece, and one of them is staying behind and working all summer. Another person is going somewhere else. Another person's at a soccer camp. And basically the pair of pants they would ship to each other after several weeks with a letter to a different person. And it's kind of their way of keeping in touch over the summer. It's a cute movie and all that stuff.
That makes sense. Yeah. Let me ask you this. So, about what age are you reading this book?
Oh gosh, I was in high school, so I was a teenager.
And you went to Santorini 5 years later, 4 years later?
After I graduated from university.
Okay,
so
5 to 7 years later.
22 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
So about 5 to 7 years later.
Did Santorini live up to how you were picturing it?
I think Greece as a whole did. I think Santorini, it's a beautiful island, and I highly recommend visiting. But I think there are also really cool Greek islands that are not nearly as crowded that you could also go visit.
Okay.
Yeah. What is your first one?
My first one is one of my absolute favorite resources for travel inspiration, and that is Lonely Planet's Ultimate Travel Book. There are actually 2 volumes. Each has 500 different experiences / destinations in each. But it's not just like a destination, right? Like they're not just going to say, oh, hey, you should visit Canada, for example. They're going
just the whole country.
Right. They're going to say, here are the whatever many things to do in Canada. And they rank all of these things around the world from 1 to 500. Mm-hmm. And it's really neat. We have both volumes. You know that I absolutely love looking through them. I look through these probably once a week.
You also make a spreadsheet of them.
Yeah, so I got really into it at one point, and I was like, I wonder what the organization is, country by country, continent by continent, those sorts of things, and if there was any if there was any significant overlap between the first volume and the second volume. There are a lot of differences between the first volume and the second volume. Mm-hmm. One of the differences that immediately comes to mind is in our trip to Costa Rica, none of the things we did was in the first volume. Okay? Oh. The Golfo Dulce, which was one of our top travel experiences ever, was in the second volume. And the second volume, they say that they are kind of redoing how they're ranking destinations and putting a higher emphasis on ecotourism and responsible travel. But it's really neat to just page through, see these beautiful photographs, and get some travel inspiration there. I would say that this is a really, really good resource if you are trying to decide what to do in a given country or place. I think that it gives you a nice kind of like highlight reel, and it also may help you kind of like reframe future travels, mm-hmm. right? So yeah, I absolutely love those. Like you said, I made spreadsheets. I kind of track like what we've done, what we like want to do, all of that kind of thing. But I absolutely love those books.
Nice. No, those are a lot of fun for inspiration. All right, my second inspiring movie is Midnight in Paris.
What a great movie.
Yes. Aside from the whole Woody Allen thing, it is actually a really good story. The cinematography and all the sights in Paris are beautiful. We actually happened upon this movie while during lockdowns, right? And we had no idea if and when we were ever going to get back to France. And it was just such a beautiful way to reminisce about our trip. But also, if you've never been to Paris, it's a really fun movie to watch because you see a lot of sights of Paris and it kind of gives you inspiration for your own trip. And there's also some very unique places that are shown. You've got the Rodin Museum, you have the big Paris flea market, which is real and it's awesome to go see in real life. Lots of really neat sights for Midnight in Paris. Plus you get the whole nostalgic effect of it having sort of the lost generation with, you know, you got Hemingway and Picasso and the Fitzgeralds and all of that kind of thrown in the mix. And it's neat to kind of eventually go to places that they also went to just in Paris.
So I had never seen the movie before going to Paris. Mm-hmm. Had you seen it?
No.
At that point or
no? No, both of our first time watching it was during lockdowns. So I'd already been to Paris. It was in 2020, yeah.
Okay, so you had... Was the first time you had ever seen it with me?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if you like watched it before and were like, hey, you should watch this. I love this movie. Mm-hmm. It is incredibly romantic. It really does paint just an exquisite picture of Paris during that time.
Yeah. It has Owen Wilson, Rachel McAdams. There's some big names in it.
There are. Yeah. And it's just so cool. And I know that this is not just the two of us because when we went on a trip to, we watched this in Glacier, didn't we?
I think we did because they also like that movie. Our friends.
Yeah. And it is such a good movie. It's a great movie for after you've kind of cooked a nice dinner and you're splitting a bottle of wine, and it's just a great way to kind of carry on that sort of ambiance into the evening. So I absolutely agree with you. My second one is Somebody Feed Phil, starring Phil Rosenthal. This is such a fun and approachable take on culinary travel. Phil Rosenthal, I have never met him. I would love to meet him. He seems like quite possibly one of the kindest, most genuine and authentic people out there. He he has a focus on, I will say, more of the familiar destinations. Now, there are a few that are probably like a bit more off the beaten path, but not nearly so as some of the other things that we'll talk about. There is a good sampling of both domestic and international destinations. I know in his more recent seasons, they're a bit more focused on domestic, just because I think that they were filming with some restrictions and all of that. I will say that this is one of the shows that if I know I'm going to a specific destination or a specific country or city or what have you, I am going to see if there is an episode relating to that place, and I am going to see where I want to eat and or drink and or partake in an activity.
Yeah, and we actually did a food tour of Modena, the exact one that he did.
Yes.
Which was fantastic.
It did not disappoint.
Oh, no, it was fantastic. We got to try the balsamic and all the fun little like treats from that area. It was great.
Yes, and as a 2A, he also had a prior show, I believe it was on PBS, called I'll Have What Phil's Having.
Yes.
There's some different destinations there. Absolutely check it out. I mean, we've looked up some of the stuff before we went to Chiang Mai in Thailand. That was quite possible. I think it's probably a top 5 meal for both of us that we learned of from that show.
I still love the scene where he's at Elephant Nature Park, which we did go to in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, and he gets between these two elephants, and then they kind of start getting closer and closer to him, and he tries to back out before he gets squished between the elephants, and then one of their tails smacks him in the face.
Yes. It's a funny show. It really is. And it has this just warm, inviting quality to it. I never imagined visiting the Mississippi Delta before seeing that episode. It was just a place that, I don't know, for whatever reason, when people are like, hey, where are you going to travel to? And that was never really like something that would immediately jump to mind. Now it's on my radar. Like, and that's the beautiful thing about these is that they cause you to kind of reframe your thinking and don't get stuck in that rut like I was talking about at the top of the episode. But Somebody Feed Phil is on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, check it out.
Yes. My next one is, again, both a book and a movie. Very popular, Eat, Pray, Love.
Also never read it, also never seen it.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's definitely about it's both about travel because she eats in Italy, she prays in India, and then love in I think she goes to Bali at the very end. So she goes.
What kind of love?
I mean, she meets a guy while she's in Bali, but
Romantic?
she also I don't know. It's a true story.
Is it scandalous love?
No.
Okay.
It's basically like this, gosh, why am I blanking on the author's name? She's like super famous and has written all these books. But anyway, so it's about the lady, she like gets divorced and gets out of a marriage and is kind of heartbroken and kind of decides to leave her life behind for a little bit and go to Italy, and sort of a healing journey for her. So she goes to Italy, India, and Indonesia. So
all on the same trip?
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, she spends like a long amount of time in each of them. Like she learns Italian at Italy and like kind of explores Italy.
Awesome.
Makes a bunch of friends. Then she heads to, she goes to a retreat in India, and she does like, I don't know, she's like trying to learn how to meditate and do all this stuff there, and then and to calm herself, and then she just kind of like hangs out in Bali and meets this guy that she met on a vacation years ago, who's like a monk, or he's like predicts her future or something, and then she goes back, and I don't know, it's really cool. Just seeing the places that she goes to are really cool, but it also is very inspiring if you want to take a solo trip. I thought that was really cool before I did my solo travels, was to sort of have, to see this lady doing that and how she made friends and her like experience.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Yeah.
It really is, because I know a lot of the other things, like Somebody Feed Phil, since that's what we just talked about. It's always better to share a meal with someone, right?
Yeah.
But that's really cool to have that sort of kind of inspiration drawn from a solo travel perspective.
Yeah. Well, and you see how much she changes and grows and develops as a person through her travels. And I think that's so important, like to let travel change you a little bit. So it's a bit of an inward journey as much as an outward journey. So it's a really cool book and movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have never taken a solo trip.
You've got to do it. You should.
Would you be like, if I went somewhere that I wanted to go, would you be upset?
If you want to go somewhere that of course I would always want to go with you.
There it is.
But I feel like it is a fun journey. I mean, I got to say it's much easier when you are like in your early 20s and you're staying in hostels and you're like backpacking because you meet so many people that way. Now in your 30s, you would easily be like the oldest person.
I'm not going to stay in hostels when I go.
But that's how you make friends is you go on the walking tours and you do all this stuff and you meet people.
I'm not going to make friends either.
So you're just going to go on a beach by yourself somewhere?
I'm not going to go on a beach. Like I was thinking more of like if I spent a week in like a national park or something. Or if I spent a week in like a particular wine region and just like kind of like hunkered down in like a smaller...
See, I want to go to that.
Yeah, I know you do. But like if I either like hiked all day and then like ate and like had beer at night, or like if I went to like a smaller like wine village or crew or something like that and just kind of hung out for a week, like Alba, I think would be a really neat place to hang out for a week. Small and just kind of like go about, like it would be a very inward trip, I think.
I do feel like that if you're going to, even if you want to start like in the U.S. as a solo trip too.
So here's what I think is important is that you give me a list of destinations that you do not care if you go to or not, and then I will pick from those destinations.
That's tough because there are a few places. Toronto, you can go back to Toronto.
You know, I mean, maybe we'll have to see.
No, I don't know. You know, we'll
kind of cool.
Figure it out. Because I think you probably, that would be a cool thing to do. But anyway, what's your next book, show, or movie?
Well, speaking of solo trips and spending time in nature, my next one is a book called A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson.
I love that book.
I know you do. And
Such
this
a good
is
one.
Normally I am not an audiobook person at all. Just I don't know. Not for me. But you and I listened to this during our trip to Shenandoah last year. And this is just a fantastic book that will make you want to get out there and hike. Get out there in nature. Visit a national park. Go explore the wilderness. Whatever you want to call it. This is an absolutely hilarious account of attempting to hike the Appalachian Trail.
His attempt at hiking.
His attempt.
And I think the funniest part is getting his like old, was it a high school or college buddy to do it with him, who was also like very out of shape and was like just the funny stories that they go through together.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like their lack of food, them just eating spaghetti constantly because that's all they could carry. And his buddy throws out all of the food because his bag was so heavy, and he gets mad and angry and chucks it off the side of the mountain. And then he's like, well, where's our food?
Yes.
We have no food.
But it's neat because it also mentions spots in both Great Smoky Mountain National Park as well as Shenandoah. We were in Shenandoah when we were listening to it, so that was pretty neat. And then we also had previously visited Great Smoky Mountain National Park and could kind of picture some of the scenery that he was talking about. It is an absolutely wonderful inspiration to reconnect with nature. And the beautiful thing, too, is that it's not like, oh, well, you can only have this experience on the Appalachian Trail, right? It's very much like he ends up going home. He ends up walking around some of his local trails and going out in the woods there and just really falling in love with it, which is neat to travel for that reason. And it'll absolutely make you want to pack up the backpack and get some miles in.
Yeah. Okay. My next one is a TV show that I really loved, and I started watching it when we were planning our trip to Scotland, and that is Outlander. Especially the first couple of seasons when they're still in Scotland. Because I don't want to spoil it all for you, but yeah, the first couple seasons they are in Scotland. And
do they not stay in Scotland?
No.
This is spoiled.
Okay. But it's just really cool to see all the scenery, and just, the mountains and the lakes and just everything is absolutely gorgeous. So it really inspired me to want to visit Scotland, and then COVID happened and we have yet to have gone to Scotland, but it's fun watching that show, but also just getting to see all of the historical places and cool things to do around Scotland, and how gorgeous the scenery is, and how much I want to see everything.
Yeah.
And find the stones.
What does that mean?
The stones, that's how she gets through and times travels.
There's time traveling in the show?
Yes.
How many spoilers are you going to drop
That's
here?
the first episode.
This is unreal. Never read the books, never seen the it's a show, right?
Yes.
Yeah, never seen it. I would love to go to Scotland though. All right, my fourth one is quite possibly my favorite. That is No Reservations by Anthony Bourdain. This is the perfect combination of food and travel, in my opinion. Yes, he has other fantastic shows, incredible books, but this one is travel inspiration 101 for me. Bourdain is just effortlessly cool. Like I don't know what it is, but it's just that kind of like, I don't care attitude that is, I don't know. Like there's just something that is like very magnetic about it. This show in particular has a nice mix of familiar and more off the beaten path destinations. I would say that it is not to take anything away from Somebody Feed Phil, but I would say that it is a far edgier version of a food and travel show. Mm-hmm. There are words that you may encounter or may hear on No Reservations that you are not going to hear on Somebody Feed Phil.
Yeah, it's definitely not terribly censored. Although I was going to say, you don't really laugh much on it, but like whenever he would bring Eric Rupert with him somewhere, and he would make him like always eat such spicy foods, and like it's one of his best friends, and he just does not tolerate spicy foods nearly as well. That would always be very fun to watch. The two of them together. Yeah,
and I mean, again, this show has a very nice mix of domestic and international as well. It also has a nice mix between hole in the wall, dive bar sort of places, all the way up to Michelin star restaurants. Anthony Bourdain was a chef, so he brings a certain culinary flair to it. It is a show that I wish we could just kind of see more. He's a person that I wish that we could hear more from. But that is an absolutely incredible show, in my opinion, and once again kind of broadens the horizons of where you may want to go.
Mm-hmm. My last one is quite a quirky one, and I really enjoyed, I don't know how I found them. I don't know if it was on Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, but the Hairy Bikers. And they are these two British men who are cooks or chefs, and they ride their motorbikes around and do really fun themed shows. And I really liked their Asian adventure one, where they did go to Thailand and learn about how to make all these delicious Thai cuisine. I also loved how they say shallots. They would be like shallots. And they were really good cooks during it, and they would learn about how to make them all the different cuisines and stuff. The chicken and egg was also a fun one, where they went to like northern France and learned about how to make the perfect roast chicken and all of this stuff. But yeah, it's a very food oriented, and they're pretty funny together, and you just see some really cool places just around the world with all of their different series that they do. I can't recall. I think they might be part of the BBC or something like that, but yeah. The Hairy Bikers. definitely check them out wherever you can. They're very comical and it's just fun.
I have seen a few episodes of that with you.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Was that your last one?
Of course I have honorable mentions.
Okay. Do you want to like kick out your honorable mentions before I add my last one?
Okay. Rick Steves Europe. Both the podcast and did you have that on your list?
I did not.
No, okay. And their show, or his show, always, he's got such a soothing, calm voice.
He does.
It's so fun to listen to him, and he just always has like lots of fun takes and stuff about the different cities in Europe and all of that stuff. So a lot of fun to listen to him and watch his shows.
So I think that you are probably more familiar with his works than I am. Does he only do Europe?
I think he has expanded outside that. His main thing is Europe because he does tours too.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Yeah. So he also has like a big tour company that does tours throughout Europe. So, and that's where he spends I think a few months every year in Europe, either with doing tour stuff or updating his guidebooks or filming shows. And
sweet.
I don't know if he does shows anymore. I think he's done with that, but he's got a whole network going on of things.
Good for him.
Yeah, and he's such a delight to listen to, and he's just such an awesome guy too. So that's pretty neat. Another one is A Movable Feast. Or wait. Yeah, I don't think that was on yours. I wanted to throw that out as an honorable mention. That is one of Hemingway's last books, or if not his last.
His love letter to Paris.
Yeah, it essentially is his love letter to Paris and talks about his time living in Paris in his 20s.
That is a beautiful book.
It is. And you do kind of get to picture all of these cafes that he went to where they partied, all this fun stuff. You kind of get to see just what it was like to live in Paris in the 20s when you were part of that lost generation.
Yes. Other than maybe, there is a chapter in The Fellowship of the Ring by Tolkien. I believe it's called The Prancing Pony. Mm-hmm. It's where you meet a character called Tom Bombadil. I think that they're in A Movable Feast. I think that is my favorite chapter in literature, where he meets Fitzgerald.
Oh my goodness, it's hysterical. I highly recommend reading it.
It is such a good chapter.
Yes. Also, just a couple extra honorable mentions. Downton Abbey with the
How many do you have?
The Cotswolds, Emily in Paris with Paris. I have too many Paris ones, so I was like, I can't have all Paris on the list. And I'd say Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Lord of the Rings, the movies, because the book's its own little world, but in the movies, it's filmed in New Zealand, which really makes me want to go visit New Zealand.
Okay, fair enough. My last one, my fifth, which is not an honorable mention, and this is going to be kind of cheating, is any sort of hobby book. So if you have a hobby or an interest, it's very easy to kind of like reframe it into travel. A few examples of mine were, this has been mentioned consistently on the podcast. Catherine has roasted me for it on the podcast, no pun intended. I am a bit of a coffee snob. Mm-hmm. The World Atlas of Coffee has, it's just another kind of reference book where if we're going to a place that is known for coffee, I will read about it in the book. Also wine. I cannot tell you how many wine books we have in this house. And again, if we're going to go somewhere, if I really like a particular region, I will generally grab a book about it and learn more about it before we travel there. But it doesn't just have to be coffee or wine, obviously, right? There's stuff out there for food, for cooking, for architecture, for what have you. The world is... Yes, it's big, but it's also probably smaller than it's ever been with all of our advances in technology and travel, technology and transportation, and all of that sort of thing. So, you know what you're passionate about. Look for it in your backyard, look for it abroad, and just kind of pick up and go. Yeah.
Do you have any honorable mentions, or are you good?
I do not have any honorable mentions. I actually, you know what? Since you had one, I will mention two. Another thing that we have talked about before on the podcast is that generally before we travel, I will try to read a book, whether by an author from that country or about a certain historical event in that country or what have you. The book First They Killed My Father was the one that I read before Cambodia. Probably one of the most difficult, but also the most rewarding reads that I have ever had. And then also, oh gosh, what was it called? I believe it's called My Guerrilla Years in Uganda, or Guerrilla Years, or what have you. It's by Thor Hansen. I just finished it. Really, really interesting account about the development of the guerrilla ecotourism industry in Uganda. So those would be my honorable mentions.
All right. Well, I think that wraps it up as far as our favorite travel-inspiring books, movies, and TV shows. But let us know your thoughts. What are your favorite ways to get inspired for travel? You can always reach us on Twitter, WWHoneymoon, Instagram at Worldwide Honeymoon, or email kat@worldwidehoneymoon.com. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to rate and review our podcast. It takes less than a few minutes and really helps other people find us. Also, if you're enjoying this awesome free information on both the blog and podcast, when you're booking your next trip, head over to worldwidehoneymoon.com/resources and use the links provided. We earn a small commission at no cost to you when you book through these links, and these are all brands and companies we know, love, and use, like Skyscanner for finding the best flight prices, World Nomads for the best travel insurance, TripAdvisor for hotel bookings and reviews, and even Amazon for all of your travel purchases.
Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Wherever you are, wherever you go, remember to make every day a worldwide honeymoon.